What happens when science, business, and sustainability collide on the vast landscapes of Texas? Can one entrepreneur's vision to build a gigawatt of solar power change the way we think about energy and our future? Welcome to Industry Ignited, the show where we explore the bold ideas and brilliant minds transforming industries across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Leeanne Aguilar, and today we're diving into the rapidly growing world of renewable energy right here in Texas. My guest is Sol Bobst, president of Solar Ranch Development Company and Toxide Advisors, a board-certified toxicologist turned energy entrepreneur. Sol, welcome to the show.
Howdy, folks, and thank you, Dr. Aguilar, for having me on Industry Ignited today. I look forward to our conversation.
Likewise, Sol, thank you for joining me. So, your background in toxicology and environmental science is fascinating. How did that foundation lead you to renewable energy and entrepreneurship?
Well, to make the long story short, I'm a chemist by training, and I've always been interested in applied science. So I worked in the oil and gas industry as a toxicologist on the health and safety side. As I worked on an MBA and then an entrepreneurship and economic development degree, I got really interested in the future of energy as I started noticing the need for energy in the Texas ERCOT market. So, driven by my own background, also the generation of solar energy is chemistry related. So, a great melding of background and experience to pursue this great opportunity.
Now, what was it specifically that inspired you to step away from corporate life and take the leap into building your own companies?
Well, I did have a trigger event like a lot of entrepreneurs do. I spent almost a decade in corporate life and I received a severance after a position was eliminated. So I faced a decision. Do I stay in positions in corporate and apply for something else similar? Or do I make a go of it? And after finishing my business education and having the opportunity to start anew, I started pursuing the solar energy market as well as the consulting I've done for a long time or expertise in toxicology.
So the opportunity presented itself, and then you just stepped into the entrepreneurship space. Now, you've described your career as being driven both by purpose and curiosity. What's been the most defining moment in that journey so far?
So I would describe two that are tied. One is when I started marketing solar initially, I was looking at commercial rooftops. And then I had a bunch of landowners approach me at a meeting and say, well, hey, I'm interested in solar in my land, but this other company wasn't interested because I had a pipeline on my land. This is Texas. There's oil and gas pipelines everywhere. I knew how to work around that and then had the bright idea for a business model to approach it. The second defining moment was when I've worked on a couple of deals that were very large, multi-million dollar deals that didn't quite get to the finish line, but gave me real feedback that the business model I'm working on is real and genuine and something that is needed and appropriate for the Texas market.
Yeah. So you had just a couple of opportunities again present themselves and then just kind of followed their lead. Now, looking back, how did your experiences in consulting and academia prepare you for the unpredictable world of energy development?
So I would tie three things: problem solving, the drive and curiosity, and then also perseverance. The problem solving comes with understanding what needs to be done or how, or the big picture of trying to solve something and realizing there are multiple variables or issues you've got to face. So being able to work through those. The second is the drive and understanding, and that comes from knowing how much we need energy to come online in the Texas market and replace the retiring coal plants or the strong growth in population and businesses coming to the state. And lastly, that genuine understanding of not quitting and having the big picture of this need is not going away. So when I have ups and downs in my own business, I maintain ways to keep active and pursuing it while I also have another business help with the day-to-day consulting and bills that I do to be able to manage both of them.
Right. Yeah, so I'm hearing there's that overall purpose, the big picture, and that is ultimately of sustainability long term in the power need here in Texas, and just keeping that big goal in mind, because it is ambitious. I mean, I know you're wanting to create a gigawatt of solar power by 2035. What does that vision look like in practical terms?
So in practical terms, let's talk about the need of energy in Texas. Right now, we're sitting around 80 to 90 gigawatts in terms of load in the Texas ERCOT market. In 10 years, we expect that to double in terms of the state needing 150 or more gigawatts. So I'm targeting roughly 1 to 2% of that total market. Yes, it's ambitious for a small business, but it's also needed because we have a power emergency right now in the state. We have rolling brownouts when we have storms, as well as high demand in hot summers. We have a growing population and businesses moving here. And we have old and retiring infrastructure. Coal plants are retiring, as well as a need to modernize our grid. So the need for power and the need to build things is a great opportunity to stay active and fill that need with the landowners, and also a great network of investors and builders that I've built over the past 9 years.
Right. Yeah. So like you mentioned, the need is huge. And Texas is one of the fastest growing solar and storage markets in the world. So what unique opportunities and challenges do you see here?
So some unique opportunities are to develop power and bring it online at a distributed scale first. That is just right under 10 megawatts. You can build something within 2 years. Now, larger power plants are attractive and needed for both the power generation and the financial targets. But most of the very large plants that are proposed in the Texas ERCOT market don't get built. And that is because it may take 2 or 3 years for ERCOT to make a decision on approval, and that approval may impact the cost of adding more infrastructure or paying for a substation, for example. So our strategy is to find good sites to build solar and storage, start smaller at the distributed size, but also propose to build a smaller plant and then expand later. And we believe that strategy makes sense to start bringing on projects now and not play the hurry up and wait game for something that may not make financial sense, unfortunately, for the stakeholders 3 to 5 years. It doesn't help anyone if we're not bringing power online in a systematic way. And so I believe my strategy helps address that need.
Right. Yeah. So you're saying like a lot of times the bigger projects, they're not successful because they take so long to get through the system through ERCOT. But you have a bigger opportunity, and you can make it happen more quickly and more practically for, I mean, and you're working directly with landowners specifically to develop solar ranches. Tell me more about how those partnerships shape the success of your projects.
Sure. I've been fortunate to build a portfolio of landowners that are interested in keeping the land in their family, so multi-generational legacy interests, as well as leasing the property and looking for diverse forms of revenue. So those are two things that help them keep the land in their family. It helps them provide income and revenue from doing a long-term lease. And then lastly, if they want to keep things like their agricultural exemption, I can work with the builders and work to say if they want to allow sheep grazing or say honeybees on the land, this is known as agrivoltaics, mixture with agriculture. Also, there's some funding from the DOE and groups to try and make building at small scale right now, but expand later to even coexist solar and storage around cattle grazing. So all important things to landowners in Texas. Uh, if they're dealing with up and down years, say with cotton crops, for example, perhaps solar is a way to help a family use part of that land to have some revenue based on the solar and storage leasing. And maybe they keep some of it for cotton or hay production, but there's an opportunity for landowners to keep sustainability, whether it's some or all, in energy generation.
Okay, so you're really working with them to identify the opportunities and then creating solutions and then helping them turn that into a reality. So I guess I'm hearing a lot of different options that they have and how to use the land and how to integrate the solar power and sustainability. Tell me more about the battery storage you were talking about. And I know that's part of your model. Why is battery storage such a critical piece of the renewable energy puzzle?
So, battery storage helps address the power shortages and emergencies that our grid can face. So, there's a premium for the power, obviously, when we have the hot summers or the cold winters and we have strain on the market. So, the advantage there is that when power is at a premium during those emergencies, ERCOT is a direct customer to buy the power at those times for a premium. Now, no one knows exactly when that's going to happen, but we know it happens at a regular enough interval that they're profitable as standalone. I like solar and storage together, although I will consider batteries by itself, because solar and storage together is still the power generation our grid needs, and the batteries offer the backup need either in emergencies or help with the cycling process of a plant offering energy when the sun is obviously shining and at maximum production, but also offering an opportunity for the battery to balance the solar. So you have cycling storage of energy that can be sold as a premium or be part of a plant that is still part of the renewable generation.
Are the solutions that you're providing, I mean, are they helping, ranch owners or homeowners completely get off the grid, so they're independent, or are they just supplemental to the grid?
So generally, our projects are grid tied. We don't necessarily do off-grid solutions. If you have somebody contact you through me and say they're interested in that, I can definitely refer them to off-grid providers. Our focus is to address the needs of the entire power market in Texas. And so what's great about Texas ERCOT markets are you can have a virtual power purchase agreement, or sometimes that's called a PPA for short. So what's possible is you can have a plant in Midland, Texas, and someone may buy your power in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, for example. So although they're far apart, there can be a relationship there. And then ERCOT helps balance the whole traffic flow of all the power to make sure everyone's lights are on. But you can, as long as it's being fed into the grid, you don't have to be directly at site to take benefit of the power. It's definitely possible for someone to have power fed directly to them in a grid-tied project for their own power, but generally we're looking at things that feed to the larger market.
Okay. Now, Texas has seen both tremendous energy growth and major grid challenges in recent years. I mean, there've been, everything from like the heat waves in the summer to the freeze that we had a few years ago that really had a huge devastating impact on Houston in particular and other places. From your perspective, what needs to change to ensure stability and sustainability?
So in the next 50 years, who knows how long it'll fully take, but I envision a future where we go from having one major power plant near the city or the factory, so to speak, and everyone buying from that one place, to having dozens of power generation locations. That may be generation from all of the above, but what we will have is a distributed network of power generation from multiple sites in multiple places that can be responsive in an instant to provide power, whether that's renewables or the traditional natural gas, nuclear. All these things will be part of our free future grid so that they're feeding the need as it comes when it comes. And that distributed model will take some time to build, but we will see a future where that is developed and responsive and really is modern to when we can instantly bring on power if we need an emergency or scale back if that helps with the price demand. And, if the sun is shining and the wind is blowing and we've had good weather for months, we might not need the power generation everywhere. And so there'll be models to help scale that back.
Right. Now, there's a lot of talk about AI data centers and increasing power demands, as you mentioned at the beginning. How is that affecting solar development and grid planning?
So there's always going to be some need when you have major power load in a location, say it's hundreds of megawatts or even gigawatts, to say, how is that going to affect and plan the local power needs in certain areas? So we want these plants to be here in Texas. It helps with economic development and our overall need, but we also want to keep the lights on in residential areas. So there are planning needs to say, how do we provide power? And sometimes when these data centers are built, they might have a large storage capacity in batteries, for example, or other generation that may be going on site rather than just taking power. So it just means planning carefully so that if there's a brownout or a power generation, we know how to work with these data centers and work to make sure that everyone can maintain power.
Yeah. Now, you've mentioned that many companies misunderstand how ERCOT operates. What advice would you give to investors or entrepreneurs looking to enter the Texas energy market?
Well, my advice is first, come here to Texas. We welcome you. We want to show you our hospitality and do some homework on the Texas market. Come and attend one of the several solar and storage conferences that happen in our state throughout the year. There are several on our calendar. So, come and spend some time and do some homework on understanding how the ERCOT approval process works. There's a shorter process for some smaller projects, like the distributed projects I was talking about earlier. You have a minimal application to ERCOT, but you also then have an interconnect application to the owner of the power lines. And so the big difference here than, say, other markets is you may be used to dealing with one big utility and one big regulatory body. For example, MISO or CAISO or these other unique markets where you're applying to that agency and the utilities, and they look at everything together. In Texas, you're going to have someone that's going to be a buyer for the power, and then you're going to have the owner of the lines, and then you're going to have ERCOT and the Public Utility Commission. So there are multiple stakeholders that you're going to have to engage. And if you talk to someone that has experience with the ERCOT market, and we can leverage our experience, for example, then you'll have the opportunity to understand what it takes and not be scared away from the market, because it's got more steps than, say, working with one agency in another state or jurisdiction or, say, country. But the demand and need for power is greater now than it's ever been. So you can set yourself up with success by first understanding the market and doing some homework.
Right. Yeah. So lots of opportunity is what I'm hearing. But I mean, there is a process and a nuanced, I guess, procedures and processes you have to go through. But working, with you or someone who really understands how to work with ERCOT and will help move that along and help generate success. So when you think about the future of distributed power, smaller, smarter, more connected systems, what excites you the most about that vision?
What's exciting is we may have a dozen resources: solar, storage, different size, places of generation, and other power sources as well. But what's exciting is seeing all of these contribute to maintaining the power when it's 95 to 100 degrees across Texas, or when we have that snap winter storm that we're not used to being below freezing down here in southeast Texas, especially. So we know these things are going to happen. What excites me is there is a future where all the power generation resources can work together so that you have a boring morning with your hot chocolate in the winter, or your lemonade and water balloons out with the kids in the summer, just going through your normal day and the power being there. But what will make that work is a different model than we have now, that is distributed and full of lots of resources like renewable energy and solar and storage power that we help develop.
Yeah. Now, sustainability can mean different things to different people. What does it mean to you, and how do you balance environmental impact with business growth?
So I'll put this into three areas. First is the economics of the sustainability. Second is preservation of our resources. And three, just meeting the goals of our community. So the first part of that is the economics. The reality of building several renewable resources, and this is outside of what your political leanings are or talk about tax credits and incentives. It is cheaper to bring online some of these renewable resources than, say, some of the traditional resources that power the market. So one is follow the money, and when you look at the economics of them, it is possible to build these on. Secondly, the preservation issue is the preservation of the landowners, keeping their land and their way of life in our rural areas, keeping them productive with everything they do, is sold to those that don't have those interests. Then we lose the culture and generation that has helped run Texas as a very prosperous state with all its resources. We were a very large cattle and agricultural state before oil was ever discovered, and we've maintained doing that while caring for our natural resources. And then thirdly, just facing what our future is, and that is finding a way to keep the lights on for everyone when we know that the growth of our population and the need for our grids to be modernized and changed will come. So all of those things are important as part of sustainability. It's not just having a green view or an ESG bottom line for your corporation. It is being practical for a future that means we keep the lights on and keep landowners happy with their land, and also have a grid that works and is affordable when we get our light bill every month. Everyone knows
Yeah.
it's been going up. And so all those things really work together if you look at it in a big picture.
Right. So I'm hearing a lot of wins. It's win-win all the way around by creating sustainability. It's not just, about like the green efforts, like you were talking about the environmental efforts, but it's also a cost savings. It's also beneficial for the landowners. And I mean, it's a solution for the growing need in Texas with the number of people who are coming in, the data centers, and, all of the building that's happening, infrastructure that's going to need that additional power. So you've also mentored students and young professionals over the years. What do you tell the next generation about finding purpose in the energy sector?
So what excites me the most as a mentee and when I'm involved in teaching is asking someone what they're curious about or what they're interested in. And I then give them a little bit of information to direct them and see what more questions or things they come back with in work. And where I think that's important, if they're driven, is I can provide a whole lot of information, and I could have given slides today on everything about the solar market in Texas and why it's so important. But if someone's not driven or motivated by having that specific data, it can go right over their heads. So
Right.
I think active learning and generation is important. So That's what I use when I interact with people. And if they come to me as a landowner and say, hey, I've got this land, what are the opportunities? Then that develops a relationship. Or seeing what people are concerned about. Hey, the power went out, or you're aware of the storms and how they can impact our grid. Well, there's a way to address that future, and that's a way of mentoring or engaging people with an active process.
Right. I think especially with younger people, they'll take electricity and energy for granted. We just assume it's going to be there. You assume that the lights are going to go on when you flick the switch. So I think that, education is very important. So they understand where energy comes from and what happens if the, grid is overloaded, and what our options are for supplementing that system. So finally, as you look ahead into 2035, what's your biggest hope for Solar Ranch Development Company and for the future of clean energy in Texas and beyond?
Well, my biggest hope is that we achieve our goal or get very close to the 1 gigawatt of power by 2035 in the next 10 years, because that is going to help the grid with the real power emergency I believe we face with the retiring coal plants, the growing population, and the weather emergencies that we face. Part of that dream is also to help landowners keep their land in their family with the lease opportunities for solar or battery storage, and providing either a mix of power generation with their agricultural work if it doesn't replace it, or also keeping some agricultural activity also with agrivoltaics. And finally, just basically a very boring grid that helps in 10 years turn on the lights no matter what time of year it is, and not be worried about having the power go out, which can happen routinely in certain neighborhoods in Houston. I have my girlfriend, for example, faces brownouts several times a year. We have a little battery that helps keep cell phones and other things running as a backup. So, that's part of my wish and goal for the future, is that we develop projects that meet a real need, help landowners, and then also just make power, I'll say, boring again, where it just works all the time.
Right. Well, so it's not a problem. So it's not something that we're having to deal with when these emergencies occur. That's something that we can depend on and not suffer the consequences of the lights being out. So thank you again for sharing your journey and insights with us today. For listeners who want to learn more about Solar Ranch Development Company or connect with you, where can they find you online?
They can find me at Solar Ranch Dev, Solar with one R, Solar Ranch Dev, SOLARANCHDEV.com. They can also look me up on LinkedIn, just my first name, Sol, SOL, last name Bobst, BOBST. Happy to connect with you there. And I attend the RE Plus meeting annually. That was in Vegas, Las Vegas last year. It'll be in Las Vegas next November. So hope to see everyone either at a meeting or find me on LinkedIn or find my website. And I'll be happy to follow up with you. Also, my email, Sol, SOL, at SolarRanchDev, SOLARANCHDEV.com. Thanks for letting me provide that information, Dr. Aguilar. And I wish you all the best with Industry Ignited. This is a great platform. I look forward to seeing the podcast. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining me today. And also to everyone listening, thank you for joining us. And be sure to follow and subscribe to Industry Ignited so you don't miss upcoming episodes featuring leaders who are shaping the industry of tomorrow. Until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and keep igniting industry.